Good afternoon. Welcome to the second of our three-part change management workshop series. I'm hopeful that you had time to reflect on the first workshop that we ran last week, that it was insightful, that you found it engaging, gave you some food for thought, especially using the Padlet program to sort of track your learning outcomes. So I'm definitely you found that very helpful. As mentioned last week, my name's Jeremy. I'm one of the alumni engagement managers here. I'm basically here to support all the workshops that Lucy's going to run for us. You'll see on Canvas that the discussion board is live. I've posted my LinkedIn profile. If you'd like to connect with me, you're very welcome to. There is no expectation for you to do so. If other people want to make connections, you're very welcome to post your own LinkedIn profile. There is no expectation to do so, but it's there if you'd like it. And without any more talking from me, I shall hand over to Lucy for this week's session.
Hello, everybody, and thank you very, very much for coming back to the second session today. It's really great to see you all here. I know it's difficult to carve out this sort of time in a busy day, 3 weeks in a row, so I do very much appreciate you making the effort to be here. And the weather might have also impacted on your ability to be where you expected to be today, this morning, so thank you again for overcoming any difficulties that you had there. So last time we talked about a personal perspective on change. We looked at the pilot on the plane idea, the William Bridges transition, and liminality. And I asked you to think about your own reflections to develop your self-awareness or your awareness of yourself in response to change and what helps you to feel more comfortable with uncertainty. Jeremy just mentioned the discussion boards. Angus, I was not happy with the answer that I gave you about the Dunning-Kruger effect, so I've put a much better answer on the discussion board if you want to go and have a look at that, and anybody else too. So today, I'll move on then to look at session 2. So today we're going to be looking at the organizational perspective on change, and this idea that it's really not about strengthening our current position and sort of building up our defenses against change. It's about looking forward and again riding those waves and in fact driving them forward ourselves or as part of our organization. So the learning outcomes for today, we'll be looking at how we might design organizations for adaptability where change is just normal and the status quo, and it's not something that we experience and then it stops and we get to recover and then experience it again. It's just normal, happens continually. We're going to look at some entrepreneurial and innovative thinking tools for navigating uncertainty, which is some of the core elements of the Newcastle full-time MBA program. And we're going to look at identifying and strengthening your own resilience strategies, preparing you for high responsibility roles and the demands of postgraduate management education. So in the context of organizational change. So I'd like to ask you to do something now. So just as an icebreaker, in the chat, if you could post your songs for change I do want that to work, but not quite yet. Post your songs for change in the chat. So I just really want to get you thinking, get you typing in the chat. What would be your song for change, either probably organizational change for today? And while you're doing that, it's just an excuse for me to play one of my favorite music videos when the adverts are over.
If it's not popping up for everybody, please don't think that nobody's posting stuff in the chat. It is coming through to me and Lucy. So I am seeing, I've got Let It Be, Welcome to the Jungle, You're on Your Own, Kids, Mad World. Thank you, Charlotte, that they can't message everyone. That's no problem. We'll run that program. Dog Days has come through.
Everybody Hurts. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah. Tougher Than the Rest by Bruce Springsteen.
Don't Look Back in Anger. Excellent. Okay, right. I'm going to leave that now, and we'll move on. So I'm going to stop my video and start talking about the Padlets that you posted last time. So fantastic engagement in that exercise, and I don't know if you've had a chance to go back and look at everybody else's, but we had lots and lots of posts, and they really could be grouped in a number of different themes. Thank you, Jeremy, has just put the link to the Padlet board in the chat there. So I asked you really what your personal learning objectives were for these series of mini sessions making up part of this course. Very strong theme came out about leading and supporting others. So it's really interesting to think that you're thinking about change clearly in a leadership position, but equally wanting to understand how you personally responded to change, how you could lead change, but also really interested in how you could help others adapt to change. And then sort of 3 close seconds. So career direction and progression, that was a theme that came through. So using these sessions to think about a change that you were experiencing in your own career, you know, whether you're changing jobs or whether you're thinking of changing jobs, or retiring or starting a different career. Looking at understanding the theories behind it, so maybe making sense of your experience from a theoretical point of view. And then the last second theme was about self-reflection and awareness. So taking a bit of time out of your busy work, busy lives to take stock really, and to think about how you're responding to change, what's happening around you, and how you could be as effective as possible in that context. So those were the 4 main things. There was a lot of desire for social connection, which was really nice to see. And Jeremy put his LinkedIn handle in the discussion board on the Canvas site. So please do connect to Jeremy, and then you'll be connected to everybody else. And reach out and start the conversation. So have a look and see who's in similar businesses, or maybe target organizations that you want to work for. But use this network as an opportunity to expand your network and build those social connections with the alumni community. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time now just to revisit your Padlet posts. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to start sharing the Padlet board, and just update it really. So find your post, and Jeremy's got a fantastic way of finding your post, which I think is Control F, and then it gives you a search box, and you can put your name in, and that'll take you straight to your Padlet post. But have a look at what you wrote last time, and just review it and check that it still says what you want to achieve. Consider how your objectives might have evolved since last time. Don't change the original post, but just reply to it with any reflections that you've had since last week, any refinement of your objectives. Okay, so a few of you I can see have put some additions to your learning objectives, and I would encourage you just to keep reviewing them, because we often write these things because, I don't know, we have to, because somebody has asked us at work, or maybe you're the sort of person that's disciplined enough to write them for yourself, but then we put them in a drawer and forget about them. So they are meant to be live documents, so keep it nearby, and keep it live, so keep making sure that it's relevant for you. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this and start sharing my slides again. Okay, so there's just like last time, there's sort of 3 main theories, models that I want to introduce you today, and then we'll have a small group exercise to give you a chance to talk to each other and make sense of things in a dialogue. Yes, you can comment on other people's Padlets, but yeah, always say something nice. And don't delete anything. I don't think you can delete other people's, but you can comment on them. Yeah, for sure. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about in the context of organizational change was effectual reasoning. So you'll recall from last time we talked about Pilot on the Plane. If you looked at any of the resources that we've put on the Canvas site, you may have explored effectual effectuation.org, and had a look at some of the other effectuation principles. So there are 5 principles, but this is the overarching, I guess, philosophy maybe of effectual reasoning. And I think it's really useful to think about this in the context of organizational change. So if you take traditional management thinking, we decide where we want to go. So we set ourselves a target or a goal. We want to be number 1 in the marketplace by such and such a date, or we want to, have 3 more products on the market, or we want to be reaching this many more people, or whatever it is in any organizational context. Then we decide why we want to do it, what the expected return. Oh, thank you. Jeremy's just tried deleting somebody's post, and he can't do it, so that's good. So after we've decided what the goals we want to achieve are, then we decide, what our expected return is. It worth doing? Sometimes that's economic return, sometimes it's other sort of return, but we have a sort of, we'll make this much money by doing this. And that's what we expect. And that's how we justify the action and the investment of resources that we make. Then we might have a look at what the competition's doing, decide that, this is where we need to be careful about what we share, what we don't share. We try and get information from them that they perhaps aren't sharing with us, knowingly. We try and anticipate disasters. So we do a lot of risk management planning, avoiding surprises, and we do lots of planning. So we get our ducks lined up, and we try and anticipate what's going to happen. We put risk management plans in place. We put, strategies in place, action plans, etc. And that's all very well, and that works sometimes. But in a context that is changing as rapidly as our contexts are changing, it often doesn't work like that. I don't know how often you've been in an organization where a plan has actually worked, as intended, from start to finish. This is what we planned, and this is what we executed, and we got this expected return. It very rarely happens like that. So what Sarasvathy was saying is that entrepreneurs, and like last time, I think we can all learn a lot from the way entrepreneurs approach things, is that they approach things upside down, really using effectual thinking. So rather than start off by thinking where they want to end up, they think about where they're starting from. So they think about the means that they've got. So just like when you get home and you think, what do I want for tea? Traditional management thinking would be like, what do I want for tea? I want spaghetti bolognese. And then you have to put all the plans in place to make spaghetti bolognese happen. Whereas somebody who was thinking effectually would go home and think, what do I want for tea? And they would open their cupboards and they would see what ingredients they'd got. And they would make tea out of the ingredients that they'd got. And then that might be spaghetti bolognese, but it might be something completely different. They would still have tea, but it wouldn't be a thing that they'd thought of before. So they start with their means. They start with who they are, what they know, what they're good at. And then rather than thinking about what the expected return is on their plan, they think about what can they afford to lose. So, if they are going to risk any money or time or effort, they're thinking, am I happy if this doesn't work and I've still invested this amount of time, this amount of money in this project? Is that okay? Nothing disastrous is going to happen if I put 10 quid into this plan and I don't get my 10 quid back. Is that okay? Is that an affordable loss for me? And that will depend completely on your circumstances. And from an organization's point of view, that will depend completely on the organization's circumstances. And then rather than thinking about competition, they think about partnerships. So they're thinking about, rather than, who do I need to protect my information from, they're thinking about who can I work with? Who can I share information with in order that we both can benefit? And then they think about leveraging surprises. So acknowledging that surprises always happen, do as much sort of forward thinking as like, well, what if I open my cupboard and there's no food in there at all? But thinking about, what they can do. So taking a very proactive approach to surprises, appreciating that they're definitely going to happen. They're not going to be able to be completely planned out. But when they do happen, think how they can be leveraged and turned into opportunities. And then finally, instead of planning, looking to co-create. So I guess it is kind of planning, but on a very micro scale. So you're just really thinking about the next step and not the one after that. So to the extent that we can control the future, we don't need to predict it. So that's really the pilot on the plane principle right at the end there that we were talking about last time. So effectual reasoning is this in a nutshell, and it's made of 5 principles. So we talked about pilot on the plane last time. There's also bird in hand, crazy quilt, lemonade, and this idea of affordable loss that that's mentioned here too. So do have a look at that website if you're interested in this. But effectual reasoning, that's the first organizational perspective that I'd like to draw your attention to today. The second one is even older. So Sarasvathy published her first work on effectual reasoning in 2001. Porter has been around for a lot longer than that. So he was in the late 1990s, but it's still really relevant. And it links a lot to what we've already been talking about. So this idea that if you're not innovating as an organization, you are doomed. And so you might think that you're okay, you're keeping your head above water, but that's only going to be true for now. It's not going to last for any period of time. And if you're not looking ahead, looking forward, sooner or later, think that the wheels will start to come off. So there's no such thing as a sort of, we can't breathe out, we can't rest on our laurels, we can't think, okay, well, we'll sort things out for the time being. You've got to always be thinking about the next thing. And he coined this sort of whoever tries the most stuff wins. That is really just about experimenting, continuously experimenting. So I don't know if you've looked at my website, but I've got threshold concepts of entrepreneurial thinking. And one of mine was iterative experimentation. So turning this idea of failure on its head and thinking about trying things out as a normal way of doing things, as a way of innovating, and not thinking when something doesn't work of it as failure. It's just an experiment that didn't go like it was expected to. So that could be like, if you think about a scientist in a lab, a failed experiment wouldn't necessarily be a disaster. It would just be different information from what you were hoping for or maybe expected, but there's still probably something you can do with it and definitely something you can learn from it. So you've got, and like performance artists, like an artist would never stop painting because they're finished. It's this idea that you're continually pushing the boundary. So it's about trying stuff. And Porter was talking about how competitive advantage arises not from master planning, but from doing things first, so, and to do things first, you need to be experimenting. And that means you need to be prepared to fail. You need an organization culture that will tolerate failure and not punish it, and an organization that can adapt faster than other organizations in the same competitive marketplace. So he's talking about innovation as a way of life. So you have this bias for action in an organization. So you're never comfortable. You're never thinking we're doing well. You're always thinking, what else can we do? What more can we do? What can we do differently? What can we do better? And use this space for experimentation as a space for experimentation. And when experiments don't work, don't think about calling it failure, thinking about, oh, that's kind of, we've experimented, we've got a result, that's good, we've done some experimentation. And then what's the next experiment? So prototyping, which could be an object or just an idea or a different way of doing stuff, should be a core competency. So he was saying that, we should be trying, sometimes called minimum viable product, but we should be trying things out way before we feel that they're ready. So putting them out there, getting feedback from customers way before that we think that it's lovely and pretty and polished and comfortable, just to get that early stage feedback and to build partnerships and collaboration. And then the last principle that he talked about was this idea of serious play. So you may have heard of Lego serious play, but there's a lot of literature on the importance of creating fun in the workplace. And it might sound frivolous, and we might think, that it's, you know, we know it's good for our well-being and stuff, but really, is it proper business? And it is absolutely proper business, and it's been shown time and time again to really make a significant contribution to the bottom line. So giving people time and space to have fun, to enjoy themselves, and have space to be creative and to fail, and to have an environment where failure is not punished, is so important to the innovative capacity of a business. And that innovative capacity is so important to the sustainable nature of the business in the future. So I've just seen Charlotte's, those are the principles of my role. You direct messages me, so I don't know if you want to, but yeah, research and disappointment sometimes, yes. So reframing failure as disappointment, yeah, it might not be what you hoped for, but it's still progress, because you've learned stuff. And if you're not trying things out often enough, you're not learning quickly enough, and then you can't make the progress that you need to. So that's the second one. And the third one is VUCA. So I don't know if you've heard of this. It's again, it's even older. So it's 1980s. You've got volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous operating contexts. It came out of the American military, I think. And on the slide here, you've got those characteristics in a grid, with on the y-axis, how well can you predict the results of your action, and on the x-axis, how much do you know about the situation. And Bennett and Lemoine, the paper that I've just referred to there, they're saying that when we refer to a situation as VUCA, like volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, we're making it probably more complicated than it has to be. And what I really liked about this paper was that it disaggregated those characteristics and said, well, actually, it's very rare that we have a situation that's all of those in equal proportions. And we can manage them a lot better if we really look at a bit more carefully and say, well, actually, is it the complexity of this situation that's freaking us out? Or is it just particularly volatile? Or maybe it's a combination of ambiguous and complex, you know, so it's not necessarily all of those things at the same time. And they were talking about how you can tailor your responses according to the particular characteristics of the situation that you're facing. So I guess the lesson from this was really to be careful of the language that you're using. And sometimes people are saying, oh my God, it's just too difficult, can't do anything. But really, we can always do something. And sometimes it helps to disaggregate those characteristics of situations to work out what the best thing to do is, and to be able to develop a strategy to address that. I didn't know this, so I've got Karis Watson in biomedical sciences to thank for this, but she drew my attention to the next acronym, which is BANI. So that's brittle, anxious, non-linear, and an incomprehensible world. So I bought the book of the guy who came up with this, Jaime Cascio. He came up with it in 2018. And I have to say that I still think VUCA is my favorite. But he's talking about a world that's brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. And you can link those criteria to what we were just talking about in terms of effectual principles. So the effectual principles can help us address those BANI characteristics. So when we come across things, if we are taking an affordable loss perspective, when things are brittle, it's not such a big deal because we haven't invested more than we can afford. So brittle is this illusion of strength that something is going to be there forever, and all of a sudden it isn't. But if we assume everything is brittle and we only invest what we can afford to lose, then we're okay if it breaks because we haven't lost any more than we could afford to. Anxious can be overcome with this idea that, you know, surprises will happen, but we can leverage them. So that's the lemonade principle from effectuation. Non-linear we can address with looking at our means instead of the goal in hand. So because we are taking control and we know what we can do and we know who we know, that we are in charge of it. So it doesn't matter if the things don't follow a nice linear predictable path, because we can be sure of ourselves. And then the last one about incomprehensibility, that goes right back to our pilot on the plane principle again. So we're not worried so much about where predicting where the plane is going if we're a passenger on it, but we can have more influence over where the plane's going if we're the ones that are flying it. So I think the effectual principles are really useful in overcoming volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, and the next iteration of BANI, brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible, and all these illusions of control, strength, predictability, and knowledge. Because, well, I think effectual thinking is the secret for organizations and for individuals. So, yes, not too, I was scared I was running over there, but I'm all right. So there's, yeah, Carmen, I love your comment. I love to call failure lessons learned. Absolutely. It sounds, it is difficult sometimes when things are very disappointing and things don't go the way we want. But again, it's about affordable loss, isn't it? And not staking too much on any one thing and always having the next thing up our sleeves to cheer ourselves up with, because sooner or later, one of our experiments will work. So what I would like you to do now is Jeremy's going to put you in small groups again of between 4 and 5 people. And I would like you in your groups to think about which element of VUCA, so volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, is most pertinent to your organization now and why. And if you're not in an organization, think about somebody that you have worked for in the past, or your university, or any community organization, could be a club, or your school, any sort of organization that you've been part of, and think about which of those elements is most pertinent now and why. And then any emerging patterns or themes in terms of how that organization has coped with that particular element, and what worked. So just to warn you that I'll be asking for a volunteer from a few groups. We won't have a chance to hear from all of them to share a summary of your discussion when we come back together. So I'll be looking for some volunteers, and if I don't get any, I might have to pick some people. So if you're all right with that, we'll give you 10 minutes for the small group discussion, and then we'll come back together and find out what you've been talking about. Well, welcome back. Hopefully you had some interesting discussions. So you were asked what element of VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, is most pertinent to your organization now and why. Who would like to share what you noticed, either as collectively in your group, about VUCA in the context of the organizations that you're in? Elizabeth, thank you. What would you like to say?
Hi, thank you so much. What I would like to say that this was quite enlightening. So in my room, there were 4 of us ladies in there, and our backgrounds and experiments at the moment is quite diverse. So we have somebody who seems that within the organization, they're going through some kind of volatility, and another one, some ambiguity, and another one, some complexity. But we could relate what we're learning to the real life scenarios that we happen to be in. And we do have, I would say, the champion of today, who we decided to call the queen of VUCA, because it's someone who works with a charity organization. And it seems as if, in some degrees, they are going through each of this, some volatility, some uncertainty, some complexity, and some ambiguity around the same time. Yeah.
Great, thank you. That's really interesting. So some of you noticed that you could identify with particular aspects of that, but there was a person in your group who reckoned their organization was experiencing all of it. Great. How about another group? Martina.
Hey.
Hi.
So it was really interesting chat that we had, I think, and it's really interesting to see other people's perspective, because there was 2 of us. We have a HR background. I recently relocated from UK to Prague, so there's an element of that. And one of our member of our group, Dominique, she works for NHS. So it's very interesting and different looks and perspectives, I would say. I'm coming from a corporate environment. Urvi, a HR advisor from Tech in London, and Dominic, as I mentioned, from NHS. So for me, it was really interesting in a global corporation. I definitely pinpointed the volatility and the complexity, because it's a large company and sometimes the structure it can be hard to navigate. And then Urvi noted that, you know, for her in a tech business, she for her it was almost difficult to pinpoint one of the sections. So definitely felt it overlapping. And Dominic definitely mentioned, with the context of NHS, the uncertainty. So it is really interesting to see, and we almost got to the conclusion that the world itself, it's not going to get any slower because of the technology and stuff and where these things are going. So it just stresses how important it is. And one of the things that I pinpointed from my experience, and it's just because I work in HR, I often see the people and even leaders being paralyzed because they're not able to make the sense out of the complex and ever-changing situations. They're not agile enough to make the decision, so they end up being paralyzed and unable to make decisions. So yeah, really, really good discussion we had.
Great, fantastic. And that really relates back to what we were talking last time in terms of liminality, and how when you're experiencing that liminality, you can become paralyzed and completely overwhelmed by the situation, which is why I really love frameworks like this, because they give us a way into breaking things down and into more bite-sized chunks of things that we can actually feel in control of, and that we can do something about, and overcome that sense of paralysis. So thank you. And also to really comment on the diversity that you mentioned. So in this, isn't this a great group of people? There's such diversity in terms of nationalities and industry sector, and type and size of organizations. So huge opportunity to learn from each other. Thanks, Martina. Last group then, Alican, is that how you say your name? Yeah.
There were also people working at NHS, and there was somebody working at a startup, and somebody doing independent research. One of the topics that we discussed was volatility, also related to the NHS, with sort of funding and leading to a lot of uncertainty, but particularly the volatile situation. One of the things that came up was that, given it's such a centralized organization of the NHS, we're sort of told what we need to deliver and what needs to happen. And the problem is with that is that people perhaps don't necessarily feel like that is necessarily the right thing. It might be that is politically driven. And that can then lead to a lot of people feeling like they sort of withdraw their initiative, because they perhaps feel like the investment that they are potentially going to be put in may get pulled at any point. And so they don't necessarily want to engage other than what they're told that they need to do as part of their jobs, which then will be a problem for change, I suspect.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think having to do stuff that you don't agree with it goes right back to what we were talking last time in terms of lack of autonomy, because you don't feel like you've got autonomy, and that's incredibly disempowering, because you come to work, you want to do a good job, you want to go above and beyond, but if you can't see the point in that, or you're not getting recognized for that, or you disagree with what you've been asked to do, it's incredibly disempowering and very difficult to remain engaged and motivated in an organizational context like that. I'm really tempted to go into a sort of coaching discussion with you, but we can't today. The really, really important issues that you're raising, and I'm hoping that you're able to see how some of these frameworks might help address some of those issues on a well, perhaps a very initial stage anyway. Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm going to move on now. I'd love to ask every group what you thought, but I want to finish on time. So if your discussions were anything like the three that we've heard from, then you'll have all had really fruitful discussions. So I'll just go back to my slides again. Okay, so I don't think I mentioned it probably enough, but on these axes, you can kind of tell where you are a little bit in it by measuring how well can you predict the results of your actions. So how confident are you up and down that scale on the left, and then how much information you've got is side to side on the scale along the bottom. So obviously, if you haven't got much information and you can't predict the results of your actions, then you're going to be in the ambiguous, and you'll know how to read the scales. The other piece that's worth emphasizing is that there are some tried and trusted approaches to dealing with all those elements. So if you are particularly noticing volatility in your environment, then it's about building slack and becoming agile. If it's uncertainty, it's about information gathering, scenario planning. If it's about complexity, it's about making sure that you're as simple as possible and everybody's clear about what they've got to do, and you're not you've engineered everything to be as efficient as possible. And if it's about ambiguity, then it's about experimenting and testing and learning. So to wrap things up then, to revisit our learning outcomes for this week, we were looking at how you as leaders and followers in organizations could help and manage your design, the design of your organization to be as adaptable as possible, so that change is welcomed and part of the status quo, and maybe even sought out if you don't feel that there's enough innovation going on. That you have a way of engaging with entrepreneurial and innovation thinking as a tool for navigating this level of change and uncertainty. How that links with some of the things that we touch on in the full-time MBA curriculum, if any of this has whetted your appetite for more. And also to think about how these two sessions are connected. So in terms of your own resilience and what that means for your organization, and how some of the strategies that work on an individual level also do work on an organizational level, to help you feel like you can support others through change and help be on the leading edge of it, rather than just always feeling like you're running to stay still. So in conclusion, please do again revisit your learning outcomes for the whole course. Review your personal learning objectives, and I'm going to ask Jeremy to share a poll like we did last time, just to see how you are doing on your personal learning objectives. So please, if you could just quickly rate yourselves in terms of how far you are towards achieving your personal learning objectives. Thank you. Okay, well, that's perfect, because I think last time we had more people in the just begun bit. So you need to just manage this perfectly so that you're complete by the end of the course. But also, please do think about your own personal learning objectives and what you could do to meet them beyond just attending these sessions and reflecting on the things that I'm asking you to. So, challenge yourself to think about how you might ensure that you meet those personal learning objectives that you set for yourself. And then in terms of reflection this week, use these 3 questions as prompts. So think about the approaches that we've discussed in today's session and how well your organization navigates change, and what it might do better and differently to do that more effectively. Where you could apply effectual reasoning in a work context, in an organizational context, to navigate change more effectively. So it may be that you don't have, maybe that you do have, significant influence in an organization, but for all of us, we have some influence in our organization. So just think about how you can influence things within your own sphere of control. And then finally, just to think about how relevant these ideas are in today's world, and what more we can do and think of to be ready for how things are and will be going forward. So Jeremy, if you could just make a note of those poll results or capture them somehow and then close the poll, that'd be great. Or share the results maybe with everybody if we're going to close it.
Yeah, no problem. Oliver's just asked in the chat, do we want the homework to be shared, or is it more like of a personal reflective journal process?
No, you don't have to share the homework. In fact, I don't think we've given you any place to share the homework. This is just for you. Nobody's going to know if you've done it or not. It's really just for yourselves to maximize the learning opportunity that's here. At the end of these 3 sessions, we will be asking you to contribute to a discussion board if you want your digital badge, but that's the only thing that you have to do, and you only have to do that if you want your digital badge. I'll just close now. Thank you all very much for your participation. It's been fantastic. Like last time, I'm really, really chuffed with the level of engagement that you've shown and your willingness to participate in group discussions, etc. Next time, final week, we'll be looking at what to do with all this in terms of your career in a non-linear world. And I wish you all the best for the week ahead, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody. See you next week.
See you next week.